Lynn and Abel, please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. You guys should have received the agenda for tonight's meeting. Thank you both for sending that out. You guys had time to review it. Is there a motion to approve that?
I'll make the motion.
Second. So you guys also received the minutes, so you guys will have a chance to review those. We have a motion to approve those from last month.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Get started with staff reports. We'll start with fire.
Good evening, everyone. I was just looking at, is it Brooke? Hi. Sorry for my disheveled appearance. I was at training with some of the members today doing search and rescue training down at the academy all afternoon. So kind of a little bit disheveled, but yeah, our fire report, I think Brooke got that. I missed a piece of paper on that to say, I mean, I don't think we had a lot of significant fires at that or alarms this past month in the DAP. We had our normal amount, which is typically about one structure fire a day in the city, and a big month in October of fire prevention activities. Of course, we had the zoo. That we had the kids out at, and then many of the companies went and did individual facilities at the schools or places like that. So not too much to report from the fire, especially for DAP 4. We do have a couple of items coming up on Saturday with the parade, and also on Markson Street. We have a veterans thing in the morning on Saturday, so that'll be fun for everybody. Of course, time changed this past month, and we always say change your batteries in your smoke detectors if you have batteries powered smoke detector when you change your clock. So, does anybody have any questions for me?
Questions from staff?
Okay, short and sweet tonight. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Move on to PD.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Soto. I haven't met a lot of y'all yet, so it's very nice meeting you and kind of get familiar with faces. So I was going to start off with some statistics. Just kind of tell you guys about the crime trends going on in your area, as well as surrounding areas. So our 17B, West Kellogg hotels and Walmart, we have had a significant increase in auto thefts, about 500%, which is a lot. I'm not sure if you guys have seen on the news, we do have a new team that's working specifically on auto thefts, property crimes. I personally have been working with them over the last few weeks, and they're doing an amazing job trying to get this number down. So they've recovered a ton of property, made a lot of arrests, and they've been able to relate a lot of this to motels and some businesses on West Kellogg. So our burglaries, commercial burglaries, are up a little bit. Some of that is also related to the clientele area. Moving on to our 18B, these still include some West Kellogg hotels in between Ridge Road and our larceny from vehicles. Excuse me. Some of that still includes the omnibus. We are showing some larceny from vehicles in the neighborhoods in that area. So please encourage the citizens you know that live in these areas to make sure they keep their cars locked, be vigilant, park at a good location when feasible. That's all I have for statistics. Before I move on to the next thing, does anybody have any questions about those?
Question from staff? Public?
We had a second chance Thursday on October 24th, a couple weeks ago, and we actually had a really good turnout. We were able to help some people get their license from suspended to restricted, so they can try to go to work, and, do some of the things that they need to do in life. We also cleared lots of minor warrants, gave people court dates so they can kind of get their lives, on a better track and a better road. Coming up, we're doing some meals for the public for Thanksgiving to try to help families in need. I think it's gonna be really beneficial for some families. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Questions from staff? Public? Thank you.
I have a quick comment. Last week, it was about 8:40 at night. My neighbor called in. There was like I heard shots fired at University and Millwood, which is about like 400 feet from my house. And you guys were there incredibly quick. I think within probably 4 minutes. By the time my neighbor came to my door, you guys were already there. I don't think anything had. There's no person injured. They just found, I think, one shell casing on the ground. So I just want to say thank you for the very quick response. I don't know if it was you, but it was West Patrol.
I will pass it on. I know who was out there, so I'll pass it on. And thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you very much. It was very nice meeting everybody. And I'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Library?
Welcome to your library. I'm Steve Hammerstein. I'm the Alfred Branch Manager. Last October, or just last month, we had 4,384 people come into the library and checked out 7,678 items. So up items about 975 from the year before. For January through October, we're down in circulations 5,740, but we're up in the gate count about 398 people. Library closings this Monday, the 11th, we're closed for Veterans Day. Wednesday, November 27th, we close at 5 p.m. And then we're closed the 28th, Thursday and Friday, the 28th and 29th for Thanksgiving. We'll be open that Saturday. November is Kansas Reads Preschoolers Month. It's an annual event that promotes reading to all Kansas children from birth through age 5. Through the statewide program, parents, librarians, and caregivers are encouraged to read the chosen title during the month of November. The title this month is How Do You Hug a Porcupine by Lori Aesop. And a child figures out the best way to hug a porcupine as he watches his friends hug other animals. In addition to that, there's a special event downtown at the Advanced Learning Library on Saturday, November 9th from 10:30 to 11:30 for ages 3 to 5. Tanganyika Wildlife Park is bringing a real porcupine down there and also other animals for the kids to see. So there is an adult spelling bee on Friday, November 8th from 6:30 to 8:30 downtown. And teams from 1 to 4 contestants will compete in a single-area elimination rounds of increasing difficulty. And the event is free, but registration is required for those who want to participate. There is Saturday, November 23rd, 2 to 3 at the mall. Watermark Books and Wichita Public Library are excited to have best-selling author Craig Johnson with us in celebration of his newest Longmire release, Tooth and Claw. Craig will be discussing and signing this new novella, and registration is required. For those who voted yesterday, maybe some of you voted here, the Alfred Branch was a polling place. It was a unique experience for me, have a place to host it, but everything went well, and so we were actually out by 8 months. It was really well. Children's room display has changed to Things That Go, and then just a few weekly events here at Alfred. We have a story time on Mondays from 10:30 to 11 for from 0 through 5 years old. So please feel free to bring your kids, grandkids to it. There is a knitters group that meets on Wednesdays from 10 to 12. They're always looking for new members, and they're always then we do have a Dungeons and Dragons for teens on Fridays from 3:30 to 5:30. That's our report. Any questions?
Staff comments? Public? Okay, thank you. Move on to public works.
Good evening, Steve Dagenhart with Public Works Utilities, Assistant City Engineer. Going to talk a bit about projects currently under construction in District 4, as well as talk about some projects in design as well. So starting with projects under construction, we've got West Street from Harry to Pawnee. Right now, work is in progress, particularly on the east side of West Street, getting a fair amount of paving down there north of Pawnee up to Harry. Expect, current work on West Street will take place through, the rest of this year and into 2025. And then work on Pawnee, east and west of West Street will take place, then start in 2025 and continue on into 2026. Dirt Street paving, we've got APAC Construction is going to pave Merton Street. Essentially, there's a few blocks there west of Meridian to pave. We expect them to start within the coming weeks here in November. And then OP3 related or pavement preservation related work is underway on Kellogg Drive on the south side there, east of Eisenhower Airport Parkway, and that work's in progress. Looks like they're about halfway done on that section already. So, projects under design, West Street, almost 2 more miles of West Street from I-235 and 47th Street South. We're looking to open bids on those 2 projects, I-235 to MacArthur and then MacArthur to 47th Street, 2 separate projects, but both of those will bid in December, and would expect construction work to start on the MacArthur to 47th Street piece in January, February timeframe, and then the north project would start then sometime this summer. Reason for that kind of stagger and that delay is because most of the drainage of the north project is served by the south project. So we're going to get the drainage work underway on the south project, and then essentially it'll look like one big project eventually once both are under construction. And then really the only, Maple Street from 135th to 167th Street West. MKC is developing concepts right now. And then I think the only other project to really highlight is multimodal facility. That work is underway right now. Down there, construction started that project in October. So, with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
How are we doing with the dead animal? Upgrade, saw another deer, been laying there for 2 or 3 days on 29th Street. I don't know whether it's in the city or the county, but it's on 29th Street, just east by the cow skin of 135th.
It's probably county area 29th and 135th West.
Yes.
Yeah, being south of Pawnee, that's probably going to be county area there, but I can reach out to them.
Well, and make sure to let Brooke know about that. Just when you see a dead deer, if you shoot her a quick email, she'll make sure it gets to the right person.
Okay.
Or Brooke will look it up herself.
I'll help.
Any questions for staff or comments? Public?
To construction on parking area across from I had something to do with
Oh, sure. That work there on the west side, that was to remove the parking lots that were on top of the reservoirs that hold the city's treated water supply. So
plans to fence that as a parking area.
there are no plans to replace it as a parking area, no. There are some plans to be developed later on just what to do with the green space, but it's not going back as a parking lot, no.
And so the Southwest Street there. What's the plan? Is that to widen it, make it a turn on the center, or what's the fit for?
Yes, so, on the, like, south,
South
2
of
miles.
MacArthur, like between MacArthur and 47.
So the portion, the easy one is south of MacArthur 47, that'll be a 3-lane, be 1 lane in each direction with the center 2-way left turn lane. The section from I-235 to MacArthur will be, I believe, a 4-lane. It's gonna accommodate perhaps 2 lanes north or southbound, and then 1 lane the other direction with the center 2-way turn lane.
I'm surprised to see that they already paved that area, and then we're gonna turn around and add, because that just recently got paved within the last couple of weeks.
I know we paved MacArthur, west of West Street, at least the city did with its pavement preservation program this year. And we tried to make sure we stayed far enough west that it shouldn't have been torn out. If there's something else that's been paved, because, follow up on what that was, but it wasn't city related, so.
On the 47th Street, there's a business right there at the corner. I can't remember what business name is. I might have been, but they were pumping out one of their like production ponds just to the east of the building. And I noticed they were pumping water out into the ditch. And the ditch is full, first of all, ready for that, but I went over to Angel Fire in our pond, normally drains underneath 47th Street to the property just to the south, and they have blocked, this has been years we've been having a problem with that blocking that drainage. It used to drain into the lower Kansas, I guess, and these guys blocked that because the garage on his property. So I was just curious about, some of the drainage issues that we have on the south side of 47th Street. Over there, kind of across from Angel Fire, and then on back to towards West Street. I noticed that they were like pumping out one of their collection ponds today, and I'm like, where's that water? There's nowhere for it to go because it's plugged up, and they're just gonna push it out into the ditch.
So all the drainage, with the West Street project, will essentially follow the same drainage pattern as it does currently, so.
But 47th Street, I don't think there's no drainage there, because our pond like gets overfull because it's supposed to be draining just to the south of us, and apparently there's a corner over there that's blocked it or tried to redirect it to their garage. And now we don't have proper drainage, and our pond is eroding, and I was thinking about it today because somebody else was pumping water into that already full ditch.
I'll get with our stormwater staff, the issue with the garage, block drainage south of 47th Street.
I think you a better location of where that house is if needed.
Okay, well, that would be helpful. When I'm done here, I can.
Any other questions?
I got a couple of questions, about the water treatment plant. We were at $1.450 million to build that thing. And what are we, about 28 million over budget?
We're not over budget. So even though there have been some change orders processed, I don't believe we're over budget.
I guess my biggest question is, why would we build and develop that without somebody to run it first? And then second, why would we spend $1.3 million on artwork for a water treatment plant?
So part of, I'll address the art one first real quick. Part of that has to do with policies.
I've seen the art.
A mural?
It's 6 or 7 pieces of steel that are
Steel
sticking
statue.
out front.
Been by there.
$1.3 million to ball piece.
So part of a lot of that's driven by policy. So there are certain projects.
Whose
within
policy?
CIP, the city council has set policy on projects that get selected for art and aesthetic enhancements, and the budget that goes towards those projects. So it's processed every year when the CIP is developed, that with the design council and then as well as city council, they select those projects and select the funding amount for those. So to answer the other question, why build it? Needless to say, our current treatment plant was in dire need of upgrades and enhancements. We really provide resiliency to the city's water treatment system. And so I don't think we expect it to be in the position we're in terms of labor shortage and not being able to staff it. This process started 2017, 2018, maybe. Yeah, I don't think we expect it to be there.
And it
So,
was approved in
or 19, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just sorry, not too involved with the project.
Now, answering both of those were policy decisions set by previous councils. Our work was approved by previous council, design, build, operate model. They did a design, build model, not operate model. That was also approved by previous council as well.
Thank you, yes.
Your remaining questions?
So on that artwork, is that commissioned to local artists?
Not necessarily. Usually there's a selection, like request for proposal type, that would go out to solicit, I think, and select artists from that. So that's what the team should have done. That's the way the policy is also set up within the CIP within ordinance on how artists are selected. So usually there's a call for artist process in that sense.
Not all the time the projects are local, but I believe this one was, or at least the one that Alan mentioned was local. There's a couple of different art installations that I don't know if are local.
This one was, the one at the water plant. And so I agree with Alan. I think, when you're facing a $5 million budget shortfall, put $1.2 million worth of art in a water plant is a waste. But it's not on Dalton, it's on previous council. So. But yeah, it was local. Anything else? Thank you.
All right, moving on to the public agenda. Let's grab a scheduled item. Grand Canyon, which Wichita, Kansas Intertribal Warrior Society.
Randy Kenyon, the Wichita, Kansas Intertribal Warrior Society, a Native American group made up originally of veterans, Native American veterans. We started in 1984, incorporated in 1986, and our purpose is to help people of the Native American community. Kind of a different setup than what I planned on. A little bit. The Native American populace in Wichita is only about 9,000 people, makes up about 2% of the community on that. We're the most overlooked. We don't have a loud voice. There are no business centers for our culture such as there are for other minority groups. But Wichita's name, territory Wichita is located on, its flag, the iconic symbol, Keeper of the Plains, we're all from the Native communities. I'm here to speak basically, most people won't know this, but there's being a directorship change for the Mid-American All Indian Center. Some people internally changed the name to the museum because they want it just to be a museum. No longer a cultural center. We want to speak to what things we see that the new director should have, or what we feel that would be good things for the director to have. But also, basically, what we do, we take care of our elders, take care of our children. We promote our culture. We do this, though we basically have no income anymore. Years we skip by that when someone needs money for utilities, for home repairs, etc., they can come to us and apply for it. The amounts that we give out are very small and haven't changed in years. It's basically like a $300 grant we can give them. But we also have a scholarship for Native American students, whether they're in grade school that needs supplies or they're going off to college. Bring that together. One of the other things we do, and I will leave some flyers back here on the desk for anyone who wants it. We are having a veterans powwow. And a lot of people haven't been to a powwow. It's kind of a two-parter, I'll just tell you up front. From 2 o'clock to about 6 o'clock, there's what's called a gourd dance. That is kind of a warrior's dance. To be honest with you, it's kind of boring to watch. But there are reasons for it. And it is traditional for the mid-plains. The second part starts about 6:30 or 7 o'clock Indian time, as we say. And that's when everyone's dressed in their finest regalia, as I call it, leather and feathers dancers. So invite you all to come out, especially if you're a veteran. If you have a veteran in your family, excuse me. We honor them and have them dance with us. So that being said, any questions I might answer?
Who gets the director? Is it a city
It is
sponsored position?
a city employee position. I really can't tell you with full disclosure, my past is dealing with the mayor and the city manager's office. They installed someone that didn't see the way of the Native Americans. We tried to bring that up, and nothing happened with it. And then a couple of years ago, another incident happened, and it was personally against me because I'm a speaker of groups. I was told I could sue the city, or they couldn't tell me what they might do for the city employee. They're replacing the city employee. I don't know if I had anything to do with it. But we wanted a director that met our needs, we can talk to, such. So I don't want to disparage anyone.
Follow up on that. So will you have any say in who
Apparently
they
not. No,
choose?
they've already chosen.
So the context, I invited Randy here today. Randy and I met, I went to the Indigenous Peoples Celebration. And Randy and I had a conversation regarding how we could better engage the Indigenous community in the process. Unfortunately, by the time that we had that conversation, the process was already moving forward enough among staff that they had already opened a position for a director. So I asked them to come today, talk about what they do. And I've asked the Director of Cultural Arts and Services, Lindsay Manaka, and also the Assistant City Manager of when we do bring the new director now, because they've hired or in the very final stages of hiring the individual, that they'll at least have a roundtable discussion with the Indigenous community to figure out what needs they want from a director, and the understanding of why move from a museum to a center and how can we still make it a place for our Native community. Because I know a lot, and I've heard not just from Randy, but a lot of people from our Native community, they don't feel welcome at the center. It's supposed to be a center for them. So that's why Randy's here today. And I just appreciate the work that he's doing as well. And the new director will be announced relatively soon. Hopefully we have a roundtable, and the current director is out at the end of the year.
Les, I don't know if you know Representative Les Osterman was.
Good friend of mine.
Yeah, he's a buddy of mine. I served with him in the legislature. He roped a bunch of us into attending one of the powwows. It was actually a blast. It was really cool. But Les was a passionate advocate for culture and the community. I'm just curious why they didn't at least reach out and have consultations. I mean, shoot, it seems like half the time they'll have undue amount of hearings before they make any decision. Why
didn't they do any kind of feedback from the
Well, I
community?
think for a center that's meant to highlight the
Yeah.
indigenous community, we should
You would think.
have those part of the table. Unfortunately, that process was already gone by the time that Rain and I talked. But we're gonna figure out a way to try to engage them better moving forward too, so. Thank you for being here.
Look forward to, working with the new director. Do invite everyone, to the powwow, put some flyers back here. I think you'll enjoy it. We'll even give you a free meal. So, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Wouldn't have a suit keep pleasant experience.
Moving on to off-agenda items, is there anyone present that did not request to speak on the public agenda, prior to the meeting, they may speak at this time, if there's anyone present? Seeing if there's nobody, we'll move on to new business, we'll start with, CON 2024-212.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christina Reed, with planning staff. I'm presenting this case on behalf of my colleague Fred Otherly. This is case number CON 2024-00212. The applicant for this case is requesting a conditional use. That's the type of application it is for something called an entertainment establishment in this city. It's zone limited commercial and it's located at 1040 West Pawnee Avenue, and it's a little bit over an acre in size. So if you guys may recall last year, anything that had alcohol and live entertainment in the same establishment is called nightclub in the city. We have since changed that. So if it's less than 300 people that occupy the space, we are calling it an entertainment establishment in the city. And in this zoning district, they are allowed to have entertainment establishment in the city by conditional use because it is within 300 feet of a church or place of worship. It borders a church to the north. So they, in our discussions during the MAPC meeting that was on October 24th, they talked about that how this place would be for events such as like baby showers and other events similar to that. They will be able to explain that more in depth once they have the opportunity to speak. The zoning code, it requires commercial properties to be screened when they are next to residential zoning districts. There is a 6-foot privacy fence to the east, and that satisfies that portion of that. But on the remaining eastern portion of the property line that is not screened, as well as the north property line, once they are issued their license to have an event center there, they will be required to screen those portions of the site. So this is part of a larger commercial strip development. However, they did provide a site plan for us. So if other tenants within this building want to have an entertainment establishment, they would have to come back for that because it is specific to this one room within the strip mall here. There are no zoning cases associated with this property. As you can see here, it has access to Sendcott and Pawnee. And we analyze whether this conditional use is appropriate, what our recommendation is. A part of that is whether it conforms to certain planning policies or documents that have gone through city council and whatnot numerous times. So the proposed application is in conformance with the 2035 future growth concept map, which is located on page 7 of your staff report. Because this map identifies the area to be appropriate for commercial uses. The proposed application, it's in conformance with the locational guidelines associated with the community investments plan. Under locational guidelines, one of them states that non-residential uses should have site design features that limit traffic, noise, lighting, and adverse impacts on surrounding residential land uses. So we're saying, in order for this to become an event center, they are required to finish that screening, which the applicant is amenable to. And then we also look at the Wichita Places for People plan, which is a place, it's envisioned as a place that provides for the movement of people on foot, bike, through transit, and balance with automobiles. This development, it is within a node, where we're saying where the concentration of a lot of open spaces are. It's right on Seneca and Pawnee. This creates critical mass of activity at the center and a transition in scale as you go further away into the residential areas. We have a set of strategies that are within the plan. So one of them is to improve the economic feasibility of commercial uses in the markets necessary to support them. And then another strategy is to encourage infill and redevelopment that is contextual to the environment in which it is occurring. So with these being implemented and with the conditions of approval in place, it is designed to mitigate some of those potential negative effects to nearby properties. The screening will help with some of the visual impacts. And then, so sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Based on the information available at the time the staff report was prepared, staff recommends approval of the request subject to the conditions that you see below. So the entertainment hours are between noon and 10 p.m. every day. There's no amplified music or speakers outdoors. If they wish to adjust it or amend it, as I mentioned before, in accordance with the site plan, that has to be done in accordance with the Unified Zoning Code. And the remaining steps are just kind of technical that we implement with any conditional use. But what I do want to emphasize is that if they violate any of these conditions of approval, they risk having this conditional use null and void. So this recommendation of approval is based on the golden rules that we apply to every one of these that you see that goes to our department here. This went to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission last Thursday, was that two Thursdays ago, October 24th. The MEPC recommended approval. I believe there were 2 or 3 folks who spoke, who were nearby neighbors and spoke in opposition to the requested conditional use. And so let's go to some of the site photos here that are also in your report on the screen here. So this is looking, looking towards the site, see the building. You can see the church from this property here. Northeast, you can see some of the screening that's already there. And while that screening is technically on the residential property side, it does count as screening. With that, I will stand for any questions.
You said there were 2 people that rose to speak in opposition?
Yes, I believe one was a couple, and then I think it was just one person, but it was a couple who was there.
What did they say?
Yeah.
What did they say?
They were concerned about, because I believe this was previously used as an event center, and I'm not sure it was necessarily in compliance, but they expressed concerns of how previously that particular establishment had problems with trash and noise and people congregating in the parking lots. Staff feels that with this conditional use, the applicant is doing the right thing, and there's a method of enforcement now that it's in our system.
Is it well lit? Are there requirements to make it better lit for nighttime?
There are lighting requirements within the Unified Zoning Code that they can get to 15 feet height, and they have to shine onto the commercial property. They cannot shine onto the residential properties. Yes.
You say that can only be open from like 2 to 10?
Yes, that is the.
So the property has to be emptied out by 10 o'clock.
The event has to cease at 10 o'clock. So I believe, we do have, I think one of the conditions.
But we know about all that goes.
Given the entertainment, it's up to them to have security if it's needed, right? Or those who are renting.
Yes, and I believe that's a part of the entertainment establishment application, which is separate from the land use.
Is that 7 days a week? Well, there's church going on Sunday evenings over there.
And again, I've been to church, it's pretty darn loud in church, especially a good Catholic church.
Preach. Questions, comments from staff? Any questions from the public? Sorry, questions first, if you have any comments, we'll off. Simply,
Question, you mentioned that the adjoining fence is on a residential property. If the residential fence were to go down, that person's property to be in non-compliance with this facts.
That would cause their property to be in non-compliance, so they would have to build their own.
Questions? John?
I recommend we approve subject to the conditions.
Second.
Need an official vote. I think everybody seconded, but
Yeah.
you just need an official.
All right. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain?
I stay up here because there's one more.
I'm gonna put one from, I'll see you this comment. All right, moving on, we have. We have PUD 2024-20.
All right, so for the case that Alex just mentioned, the applicant is requesting a zone change from limited commercial to planned unit development to create the 4720 South Seneca Street planned unit development. It's in our system as number 133. The subject site is 0.6 acres in size and is located at 4720 South Seneca Street, and it's currently developed with a vacant retail store. So they're requesting the zone change in order to permit uses already permitted in the current district, which is limited commercial, along with other uses such as basic industry, freight terminal, and warehousing. So planned unit development, as you guys know, is a custom zoning, and it provides some sort of flexibility that would otherwise not be permitted under the existing zoning. As if we take a look at the PUD map here, it has the parcels, and so parcel 1 is developed with a commercial retail storefront. And they are prohibiting certain uses that are allowed in the commercial district. So correctional placement residence, nightclub in the city, service station or gas station, and asphalt and concrete plant. So they are looking to repurpose the existing commercial structure into an inventory processing center for Goodwill Industries. So inventory would be received at this location, packaged, processed, and then shipped to Goodwill retail locations in the area. There was a vacation request. Vacations do not get hurt by the DABs at all, but it's to essentially when I say vacation, I mean as in to vacate 20 feet of a 30-foot platted setback. So normally there's a minimum distance between the property line and where you can build, and that is recorded with the registry. So a vacation would remove, they requested to vacate 20 feet of that, and that was approved at the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission on October 24th. So there's a list of definitions. You can see here for basic industry, freight terminal, warehousing. I'm not going to go into them in depth. They are listed in your staff report. But based on the interpretation of what basic industry entails, it is staff's opinion that this is not needed to accomplish the use that the applicant is intending for the subject property. And so we are recommending that that be removed from the proposed PUD language. So if you guys take a look at your staff report here, starting on page 6 until page 8, you can see our changes in red, what we are proposing. Access to the site is from South Seneca and West Davis Drive. And then once a week, the semi-truck will access the site and utilize the southern portion of the site for the loading and unloading of goods. So that would be, again, along Davis Drive. And then parking is in accordance with the Unified Zoning Code, and signs will conform to the Wichita Sign Code as to what's permitted in the limited commercial district. The landscaping is pretty much the same as the Wichita Landscape Ordinance with exception, and that is normally there's a landscape street yard area, and that is one shade tree or one large tree or 2 ornamental or medium-sized trees for every 40 linear or 50 linear feet of street frontage. And so they are requesting to reduce that by 50% until the existing structure that's on site is fully demolished, along with the parking drive and aisle across South Seneca Street. So we are we're recommending to be changed to a 50% reduction until only the building is demolished, and then they have to be in full compliance with the landscape ordinance. The screening is the same as what's allowed in the unified zoning code for limited commercial districts. However, we are again making another recommendation that the screening should be, normally you only have to screen when you're abutting TF3 or more restrictive, and so that's what we're recommending. TF3, I'm sorry, allows for single family, two-family homes. So TF3 means two-family, right? There are no zoning cases associated with this property. As you can see here, the subject site here has access to South Seneca Street as well as West Davis Drive. And then let's look at the performance plans and policies. So we're saying it's in partial conformance with the community investments plan. And because it's in South Wichita, they have their own neighborhood area plan. So we're saying it's not in conformance with the South Wichita Eastville area plan. So when we look at the future growth concept map, which is on page 12 of your staff report, we're saying that it's in partial conformance because it recommends the site is appropriate for residential and commercial uses. This is kind of a heavier commercial use and it's right next to residential. So we're saying it's in partial conformance. In addition to that, we're saying we're studying the development patterns in the area, and one of the guidelines says that major commercial and employment centers should be located at the intersections of arterial streets and along highways and commercial corridors. It is on one major street, which is South Seneca. And then under land use compatibility, there's a guideline that says that higher intensity development should be discouraged from locating in areas of lower intensity development, particularly low density residential. And any industrial or major commercial land uses that generate pollution, odor, noise, light, safety hazards, and high levels of traffic should be located away from residential areas and develop a screening offering to site features sufficient to mitigate some of the potential impacts, such as an increase in traffic, noise, lighting, etc. It's not anticipated that these uses will generate an excessive amount of pollution to the surrounding properties, but it is a little bit higher intensity than what's already permitted here, or in the current zoning, sorry. So the South Wichita Hayesville area plan, it is from 2001, and it talks about the desire for new commercial development in the area, but it also identifies its site as appropriate for residential, like low density residential, as in like single family housing. And as I mentioned earlier, they're proposing some heavier commercial and light industrial uses at this location. Staff recommends approval of the application subject to the revisions that that are in the staff report. And basically, there's some conditions here. So they'll record a certificate with the register of deeds, a copy of the certificate has to be submitted to us just for final verification. This recommendation is based on the golden rules. And then this went to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting again on October 24th. It was approved subject to staff conditions, aka the revision staff report. There was a gentleman who did speak, and I believe I've seen tonight, so I think he'll be able to provide some insight on his comments from the meeting on the 24th. And as you can see with some of the site photos here, this is the existing building and how they're planning on putting the Goodwill processing center there.
So that's what's gonna be torn down.
I believe so.
No, it's not, it's not, okay,
it's not.
The existing building will remain, but be renovated.
So what we can see here that's mentioned, that's that the existing structure will be.
Yeah, I will defer, I apologize, I was not present when this was being heard at the MAPC, so I will defer to the agent for further clarification on this, but thank you for catching that.
Ironic that it's the old DAB.
The old DAB.
Putting the
thrift store.
Goodwill into the old. That's good irony.
So what exactly is being removed then? This is that you changed the something about the trees for up to 15% until a certain structures can be removed?
I'll defer to the agent for clarification. I can elaborate on that a little bit.
Thank you for. Hopefully I can bring some clarity to this and speak to some of the concerns. So I'll kind of give you a quick summary of the project, what's going on. And then after that. Sorry, Matthew Tucker, DHC, civil engineer on the project. So what we have is an existing DAV building that sat vacant for a few years. It had some problems as it right before it went out of business. Some turmoil, things like that brought to light over the last couple of meetings. But what the intention to do here is take the existing structure and repurpose it. So previously it was a retail establishment, the DAV, and with retail you have frequent traffic trips. So you've got cars moving in and out of the site. You've got people moving in and out of the site. You've got scraps from goods and different trash produced on site that has to be disposed of in a dumpster, that sort of thing. And what we're looking at doing here, slight modification of what was said is that this is a processing center for Goodwill. What they do is they truck in palletized materials. All the pallets go into the building, so nothing is stored outside. So it's unloaded from the truck, forklift into the building by an electric forklift that charges inside the building. So again, nothing outside the building. Pallets are stored in the back of the building. In the front end of the building, they're going to be reworking what comes in on pallets and repackaging it. Okay, so taking things, making new packaging, all that gets palletized. And then when the next truck comes in, they unload that, they load the other stuff on, out it goes, nothing stays outside the building. So the processing center, although by definition doesn't fit in limited commercial, I would argue it's almost not a more intense use because you don't have the frequent car traffic trips. You don't have different people at the site every day. Instead, the parking provided would be for staff. People have pride in the place that they're employed. It's people who are going to be repeating that trip on a scheduled time. So that's a lot of what you're going to see as a change from what it was as a DAV to what it will be as a Goodwill. This is not a Goodwill retail center. So this is not customer flow now. So kind of a more predictable pattern. The truck delivery, we're anticipating 1 truck a week. And it's when it's loading and unloading, it's parked on the site, not on the street. So we've developed the site plan to allow for that. Part of the challenge with developing the site plan to allow for that is that we're restricted on the space because it's an existing site with an existing parking lot. We're going in with a new parking lot, revamping the building, beautifying the area. But to speak to the landscaping, the challenge with that then is you have to have a certain number of stalls for your employees, but you also have to have, the city has some landscape requirements for square footage of street yard. And so it's actually not the trees that we're looking for reduction on, it's the total net square footage of green space along Seneca Street, which would have been around 1,200 square feet. We're looking at about 600 square feet so that we can lose a little bit of the existing pavement there. We'll have more landscaping than what's there today. But it wouldn't be the full amount that traditionally required because we're not scraping the site. So it's just a measure to try and make that site developable, usable. And then to speak lightly on the vacation that was mentioned, we vacated down to the zoning setback that's there today instead of the platted setback that was not platted the same on the other side of the street, same plat. And the reason we did that is to provide for a canopy and a space for a locked trash dumpster enclosure. Previously, they had dumpster fire issues at that location. So just methods to try and provide safety for the employees and inclement weather during truck deliveries, but then also to help control things that are going on outside. But that's kind of a quick summary of what's actually happening within the site. The reason for the PUD is because of the freight terminals. So we agreed with staff's recommendations, all the red revisions that you see in your report. We're on board with all of those. And
basic industry when we asked for it. We were still, as a team, trying to figure out the clarity and make sure that the BUD covered anything that might possibly be, the use might be interpreted as. It has been clarified by staff that it would be a freight terminal use. And by definition, we have no problem with basic industry. Because that, honestly, if you read that one, it's kind of an ugly definition. So, I'll stand for any questions.
The question from staff. Comments. Questions from public? Sir, come up there. Yeah, no, you just stand there, just there.
Okay, well, Dalton knows who I am. I'm Gary Hall. I live at 1009 West Davis. I did have a chance to talk to the agent and the applicant. I think everything that could go in there, that's a good deal. But I also am expressing my concern again about dumping and people prowling. Living across from the DAV, and you know what went on at that other building at the after hours party. It can be a mess. And dumpster fires, that's another statement. They were there all the time. So again, that's my two concerns. And you know, as long as they step up and do what they said they were going to do, that's fine. Otherwise, Dalton, you're good pictures.
Will you have security outside of the perimeter too, like cameras and?
I believe there was mention of cameras on the exterior.
We'll add exterior cameras on 3 of the 4 corners. One of the corners actually points to the neighbor's property to the north, and so we agreed not to put a camera there, but it's fenced in between the two. But we'll have them on the other 3.
Okay. Yeah. So you have cameras, otherwise I will get photos from Gary. So.
And in addition to the cameras, there's some additional fencing going on that should.
And you say you're going to have lighting too.
Yes, we're adding additional lighting to the parking lot and on the building, so it's very lit property.
So where's the trouble coming from? Is there like a BMW or something on the other end of that building?
The biker guys on the other side, they meet about once a month. And like where I live, I hear them a little bit, but I hear so much crap going down Seneca with sport bikes and all that other crap, you know, so they're not a real problem for me. The only problem that I said that I had was before when it was DAV, all the dumping and the people prowling around there at all hours of the night. Just people walking around.
So was there a question? Was there a question?
No, I was trying to answer.
Well, I had a question. I was just trying to understand who's causing problems, where those folks come from. To his point of, as long as it's lighted, there's security cameras, we can be assured that there's not people hanging around causing problems. I was just curious, were they homeless folks? Are they just people causing problems for fun?
Both.
Yeah, there was a property directly to the west of Gary's house about a year ago.
Detailing?
Yeah, it's the detailing one. Yeah. So I think that was more, expression of we don't want that to happen again.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, dumping. And I know that you guys can't control that. But I hope that if they dump it, you're gonna have time in the mornings to do it. I mean, I realize that, but if it starts to be a problem all the time, I mean, I don't wanna look out there and see that. I mean, I don't, and then it adversely affects my property value at the same time, you know. So that was.
And I can respond to that if you'd like.
Sure.
2 things. So those cameras that we mentioned, we have a director of facilities, so we have a loss prevention director, we have a retail director, commercial director. All those people have eyes on those cameras. And just like our stores, and this isn't a store, and I think that's worth talking to, if we see people dumping a product, all 4 of those people have views on that. And so we have trucks and trailers around the city, and they'll immediately go out and pick up, items. I think that whole process can be lessened for 2 reasons. So the dumpster fire, this whole project is put up there, backing up a little bit. We have this same process going up at our facility currently on North Webb Road. And what it is to provide employment opportunities and education opportunities for people that don't have those opportunities in the traditional workforce. However, up on North Webb Road, people with transportation issues can't get up there. So we're putting those same work opportunities on South Seneca for people that have one car per household or need to use the bus to get there. So the whole building is going in place to provide employment opportunities and workforce development.
So
It's not a retail store.
So when I toured the North Club location, that's what you're trying to replicate here.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I will speak to that.
Okay.
It is one of the most impressive facilities that I've seen in Torrey. Cleanliness, the efficiency, the opportunities they provide people. And if for some reason there's any problem, I'll call Laura. And have a good conversation. Laura's the president of Goodwill here, and I am confident in her leadership and your guys' leadership. So.
Thank you.
I just wanna make it clear, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, I think if everything that can go in there, that's a good fit, it won't affect the neighborhood very much, and you'll be done in the day, you know, and it won't be like late at night or anything else. But I just did wanna say my two concerns, and that's what I'm gonna have, and that's it, but I'm not necessarily opposed to it.
Will there be any signage of saying this is what we're talking about, or no donations accepted?
Yes, and we, honestly, we don't have the marketing complete on what we're going to call it. You know, when you hear the name Goodwill, the assumption is it's a retail store. We really don't want that perception. So we'll have Goodwill somewhere on the signage. But we're using language like Opportunity Center and Book Center, so it'll have a different name. It really won't have to look at your. And then the last comment I'd make on those potential dumpster fires in our stores, and like the BAD is the product that's in those dumpsters are flammable. The product that would go in this dumpster is less likely to be flammable anyway. It's really a packaging product that you can't recycle. Woods and plastics and cardboard you recycle anyway. They don't go into the dumpster. So what you'll see in the dumpster are like food products from the employees that are having lunches, that sort of thing. So the likelihood of fires would be much less.
John, I make a motion, we approve subject to provisions attached and the conditions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, thank you guys. On to board agenda. Let's start with updates from Councilman.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. So, well, right over an hour, but I'll make it relatively quick. This upcoming Saturday, we're branding as a Veterans Town Hall, but it's for any resident that wants to come. It's going to be at Oxford Vista. Brooke and I went and door knocked at Oxford Vista today. There's really good conversations. I think we got invited probably to half the rooms people at the facility. We're also door knocking the neighborhood to invite people to come to it. So hopefully it'll be a good time. Brooke has a neighborhood cleanup gala. Unfortunately, I won't be there on December 7th. Brooke, do you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, we're just celebrating volunteers and anyone who's interested in volunteering and anyone who's helped or has an interest in having a cleanup in their neighborhood, and there will be pizza.
Awesome. I'll kind of give an update. Yesterday, we met in council. It was the second longest meeting in the city's history. The first longest was in August. So we had the first and the second longest records. It was about 10 hours yesterday. So luckily, all of us voted early because we would not have had the opportunity to go and vote. In terms of some of the big items we talked about, yesterday I probably cast more no votes than I have since I've been on the council. There's a few things that they've hit the news, so that's why I would be talking about them today. The council voted about $500,000 for 2 porta potties. They're called Portland Loos, to be established, NASCAR Park, and then also along the river. I just feel the cost of $250,000 per porta potty, essentially.
Didn't I see the retail cost on those is like half that?
It is, yeah. There's a lot of installation costs because they actually drain into the sewage system. So there are some benefits of it. I still didn't feel comfortable spending $500,000 for 2 public bathrooms. Right now, we have public bathrooms in Old Town, but they're locked down because of vandalism. So I don't see the purpose of opening more if we still have the ones locked down because of vandalism. Let's solve the vandalism problem and just open the bathrooms. So unfortunately though, there was a 4-3 vote and it passed. So there will be one at NASCAR Park. There will be one along the river at Price Woodard Park. So those will be established. There was an organization, Cure Violence, that is doing really good work in the community. I think they are a great organization. They received previous ARPA funding of $1.6 million from the previous council. That ARPA funding, because they started late on the project, was going to expire in December. So I supported the full extension where they could spend the funding, which goes out to June. However, staff's recommendation was to increase the funding by an additional $1.5 million. And unfortunately, I don't think there's enough metrics to prove whether or not the project has been successful. The ask came 24 days after the organization had been standing. And so I don't think there's enough evidence to prove success of an organization that's only standing 24 days to then give them a 100% increase of an additional $1.5 million. I just heard a lot of yesterday's conversations were a lot of how we could spend ARPA funds. And it seemed that it was, let's get the money out the door as quick as possible because we have to expend the resources by December. And it just seemed that it wasn't necessarily the best use for some of the funds. It was more of how can we get out these funds because we have to allocate them by December 31st or it goes back to the federal government. So unfortunately that also passed on a 4-3 vote. We talked about public comment. I made the motion to allow public comment during our workshops and also our consent agenda items. The workshops did pass, and so now individuals historically cannot speak before the council. When we had workshop agendas, they can, and so they can speak before the council. There's only a few opportunities that individuals get where all 7 of us are in one room, and I feel if all 7 of us are in one room, people should be able to air their grievances with government. So that's a couple of things that happened yesterday. We did a ARPA funding to fully fund the agency center. And then upcoming, the 2 big ordinances that'll be happening probably in the next month, I would imagine, is our, and I would say there's 3 holistic ordinances regarding it that have to do with panhandling, anti-camping ordinances, and the third is, it's in the same line of those 2 as well. They just have to be in 3 different ordinances. So panhandling is already illegal in the city of Wichita. What we're adding is that if you are an adult and if you're an adult, you're responsible for your 18-year-old kid asking for money in the street too. We've got a lot of problems along 21st and Mays where kids will be going into the median. It's one of the most dangerous intersections in the city. They'll be going in there collecting money for a fundraiser. And unfortunately, there's just a safety hazard with that. And so that's going to address panhandling, not just for those asking for money on the streets, but also for charity organizations that are impeding traffic. So that'll be one panhandling ordinance. We're also working on some signage. There used to be someone on West Kellogg a couple of years ago that I think significantly cut down on panhandling. Those signs have all been ripped up. And so we're establishing permanent signs along Kellogg. The intention is to establish permanent signs. It still has to go to an RP, still has to be printed. But I've got a lot of calls from West Kellogg about an increase of panhandling. And it's gotten worse every single. It's dangerous and it's not effective. Our HOT team says almost all the time that those that are panhandling are not our homeless population. So the sign will actually, we're trying to figure out with legal if we could put a QR code or if it has to be a phone number, but a QR code that would actually link out to the multi-agency center. So an individual, if they want to donate, instead of giving somebody money, they can donate to the multi-agency center. And they can, so an individual is panhandling there, they can also do a QR code call. It'll go to either United Way or the multi-agency center. So they're still offering resources. So that's one aspect. And then, and 1 second, sir. And then we also are addressing anti-camping ordinance that will, I think has to happen in tandem with the multi-agency center. We can't have the multi-agency center without addressing the anti-camping ordinance. So that will be, it'll cut 72 hours to 48 hours once a notice is posted on a campsite that they have to vacate. In addition to that, there is certain stipulations that we can vacate a property immediately. So that is within like 250 feet of a school, a church. There's a few other aspects. And so this will be coming forward probably in the next couple of weeks. And I imagine there's going to be robust discussion about it. And so be on the lookout for that. I'll try to, once I get the full digital version, I'll send it out to all of you because I want feedback. One of the positive aspects of it too is that in-house cleanup, so it's not to a third party anymore. It's to the city, and city staff will be responsible for collecting art or items of value. So if they find a ID or they find medication or they find documentation, we're required to keep that. We'll hold it for 30 days for the individual. So we're not throwing away and exacerbating the problem, because often if you lose your ID, then you can't get other resources. So we'll hold all the valuable possessions, anything that's soiled, anything that's considered a non-valuable will be disposed of, and we're now requiring photos be taken so we can delineate between both of those. So that will probably come up, I would imagine, by the same time the multi-agency center one is happening. So stay on the lookout for that. Last question, or last thing is November 19th is an evening city council meeting at 6 o'clock. It's our last evening meeting of the year. We've had 4. So we have a 4th one. And what's I think really cool about it is I see very different faces at the evening meeting than I do at 9 a.m. And often at 9 a.m. I see the same faces every single week. The evening meetings, I've seen different people. And so it'll also be robust. That's when we're talking about parking. So I imagine it'll also be a very long meeting, but we are statutorily obligated to finish by midnight. So the max can be 6 hours.
Time does that start at?
6, yeah, so 6, and downtown parking will be on the agenda. And the staff has presented 4 different plans to us. One of them is to continue as is, no change whatsoever. I don't think that's sustainable. I think we need some reform to our parking system. Option 2 has to do with what was proposed previously and just continue with the metered system. Option 3 has to do with, and I think Vincent's still here, but don't quote me exactly on these if Vincent is here. Option 3 has to do with a CID over Old Town and then mandating 75 cents for all of our meters. So there's 4 different options presented. You can go to wichita.gov/parking, you can find all of them. So yeah, any questions for me?
Where do you stand?
What?
Where do you stand?
I think we need reforms to the parking system. I was the sole vote in opposition to the original vote to implement the parking plan. My opposition was not for the paid parking aspect. My opposition was that I'm uncomfortable with a third party enforcing our laws.
They're still going to do that?
I have still had that question that's not been answered. At a minimum, I would want that we require them to take an oath of office and a class in the Constitution to have some understanding of how to enforce ordinances. So that's my biggest concern is the enforcement, not necessarily the paid parking, though the paid parking should be reasonable.
So do you want an increase in the areas that are paid parking?
What?
You want an increase in the areas that are paid parking?
No, technically right now, the city only has 1 meter made to be able to enforce our entire parking system. We're not actively enforcing the parking system. So it would be established meters that would cap at 75 cents. Now there's questions of whether you get the first 2 hours free or whether it's not. And the question is, if you work downtown, you park along. There's a lot of questions that I still have. I also believe right now we're treating Old Town, Downtown, and Delano holistically, and we're not seeing them separate as different organizations. Delano, we're in the process of building a multimodal hub that has 400 extra parking spots. I think Delano has to be excluded from the conversation at this point because it's very different than Old Town and Downtown. And it's just gonna look very different. Delano, you actually want people to come in and out pretty quick. Downtown, you're gonna be staying there probably longer, especially during the workday. Old Town, you're gonna be staying there in the evening. So all 3 are very different. I have a lot of questions. I did vote in opposition to the original parking plan. And so I'm leaning towards opposition right now, but we have to do something because right now we are losing revenues in our parking system. And right now that's covered by the general taxpayer. So the 90-year-old woman that never comes downtown is currently paying for our parking system.
She ain't paid much though.
No, it's part of her property taxes.
Yeah, she ain't paid much.
Yeah.
I mean, considering that 1.3 million we gave for an art project, I mean, come on, please. Okay?
Yeah, I did not support that either.
Well, 500,000 for porta potties.
I understand that, but your predecessor did.
I don't know what his vote was on it. I don't know.
But
Jeff and I actually have a lot of very similar
he was
votes.
in but nonetheless, I'm with you as far as an outside party. We don't need Barney Five out there with an incentive plan to write tickets.
Yes, government shouldn't have a profit incentive to enforce the law. We should just have an incentive to enforce ordinances as written. So that's my concern. I'm leaning towards opposition right now. I can be swayed if they address my enforcement question. So
Thank you for your no vote on $500,000 shitters.
any other questions?
Yeah, we'd like to know
Yeah,
who
well,
voted for it.
We talked, we talked about several months ago, this Airbus deal, and I've seen the paper that there's about 270 of them still operating them that don't have licenses.
Airbnbs. Yeah,
Airbnb, yeah.
So we are in the process, we've actually closed the gap a lot on that right now to be able to register them. Because Brooke and I get letters when anybody does apply for a short-term rental license, and I'm probably getting 8 a week, I would say. So they're coming in much quicker. And neighbors do get a letter just like a zoning case, so they're informed whether or not there's gonna be an Airbnb in their location. Now, there are some operating without licenses right now. There's the larger question, and I haven't fully got this answered, of whether they're also paying the transient guest tax or not. And because hotels have to, which goes into funding Visit Wichita, and funding other programs. So we're trying to get them in compliance, because if they're in compliance, then we at least know that a short-term rental is there. We know who the owner is in case there's a problem there. So we still have a gap. It's getting better, at least from what I've been able to see.
Any progress on finding someone to run the homeless shelter?
Yes, we just actually yesterday approved an operating agreement with Humankind Ministries again. They've operated the past 2 years. We're hoping to give them the key before Thanksgiving. That's the goal. So they're gonna be operating again.
Can you give us any update or on the potential ethics issue that's being raised against the mayor?
I can't speak to it solely because it could come before the council, depending on what the ethics board rules. I know that the mayor will have the opportunity to present her case, and so will there'll be an investigation, but because it's coming before the council, I don't know much, and we've been kind of kept out of the loop until the investigation takes place.
I interviewed her yesterday. She submitted a 100-page response. That thing's gonna die horribly.
Her response is gonna die horribly?
No, the whole complaint will die horribly.
Oh, okay. So it's, and so far.
It's a she said, and it'll die horribly.
Well, and right now, I think the ethics ordinance is a good thing. I think our ethics policy is a good thing. The only unfortunate reality sometimes is when you can lodge ethics complaints, and I'm not saying whether it's unfounded or founded,
right,
but you can lodge it, and then there's a narrative already created.
There you go.
One way or the other. So if you go to wichita.gov/ethics, you can see, I think there's been 12-ish ethics complaints, and only 2 have been found out of that.
Okay. No, and that's fair. I mean, you have to have the opportunity to make a complaint.
Yeah.
Everyone deserves the opportunity for the investigation, so.
I'm filing one on Alan later.
Yeah.
Huh?
I'm filing one on Alan later.
I don't know if everybody on the board knows this, they can also be filed against you as well. So.
What kind of teeth do they carry?
Yes, as a member of any board or commission on the city, you also are held to the ethics policy passed by the city council. And so if you haven't reviewed it, I think you should have reviewed it when you got sworn in. I think it was part of it. If you want to review it, we didn't make that much changes to the new policy, though. Actually, could we send around the new ordinance? Okay, because we did pass an ordinance versus policy. So I'll make
The
sure.
only thing I want to say is like, I just recently signed.
Hi, everybody.
Wait, Alan, 1 second.
And I was just gonna say, I recently signed, the ethics documentation. We really ought to have one for committee members who are not paid city employees. Because the one that I signed was like, I'm a city employee and I agree to this, and I'm like, but I'm not a city employee, but I was required to sign it. So we really should have one for folks that are unpaid, volunteering. Because I don't know how that could be upheld when I'm not a city employee, and that was the only ethics document that I signed, so that would be.
Good note, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I don't get to see that part, so.
Yeah, so we might wanna address that, just because if you do try to enforce that, I could be like, I'm not a city employee, you haven't signed it, but I'm not a city employee, so I really can't be held to that standard.
Okay, good, that's good feedback.
I'm an auditor, so I look for things that.
Hey, I appreciate that. Please help us audit.
Don't, don't match
Sharpen that
policy.
Questions? All right, time is 7:20. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?